very curious to know how you got the area of Texas shaped you as a youth growing up.
Texas is we country boys down here. We grew up fishing, and grandfather, family means a lot to you down here. Uh, just that's really kind of shaped me as a person. My family.
And as you're growing up, and hip hop is the evolution of it. It's coming. More people are hearing about it. Do you remember the first spark that you were like, I want to really try that?
Yeah. Around that time, Crush Groove came out in the theaters. It was a big deal for us. It was a slow burn. When it first started, groups like Grandmaster Flash and Sugar Hill Gang, those guys were out and doing their thing. But by the time Crush Groove out, Crush came out, a lot of the kids had gotten into it, and we were trying to figure out a way.
Just correct me if I'm wrong, but as a teen, Dr. Rock came down to you and was pushing his records, and then he found you at a club, at a local club in a way.
Yeah, he was. Dr. Rock came to Dallas as a DJ, and he came from California, so he was sort of the first DJ on the radio in the Dallas-Fort Worth area that was allowed to play hip hop on the radio. And so he became a popular guy, And all this is around the same time, 84, 85. Yeah, he saw us on a TV commercial down here. I did a TV commercial for a local television station, rapping in the commercial. He had saw the commercial and saw us at one of his parties and asked if we wanted to be in a group. And he was the sort of the biggest thing in the city. And so we decided to ride with him. That's how the group started.
And it started from Texas and went to the state of California, correct?
That's correct. That's correct. We started in Dallas, and he eventually introduced us to his friends. That was all those California boys.
Right. Now before this happened, sir, were you ever in the state of California before this, or no?
Yeah, I had an uncle that lives out there. I visited him a couple of times as a kid, but not as a young adult. I had never been out there and saw, what was going on out there. It was a totally new experience to me when I got out there. When rap took me out there.
So it really was a complete change of scenery as a young man in the full-fledged way.
No question about it.
I'm just trying to think realistically. When you meet new people, you have to kind of fill them out and kind of meet them for the first time, first impression, just like we are right now. I mean, when you're meeting, Dr. Rock, and you eventually meet, Dr. Dre and Snoop and all these great people, what are your first impressions of them? Because everyone's coming out, although Dr. Dre was already established in a way. But what are your first impressions of these new people you're meeting?
Yeah, we're all sort of hip hop fans, so we meet at that intersection, and we're all just young guys that love the art form. So we all got that in common, and it made it easy. They're just guys like I am, but they're raised differently in California. Those guys are raised for war, really, and so that took me a minute to figure it out. But just on a surface level, They're just regular young kids.
Now, did you become sensei to them through just giving them your advice on how to write and how to carry themselves vocally too,
Yeah,
of how to
yeah,
which words to connect to and things like that?
yeah. I was just better at writing than those guys, and so I became sort of their go-to when it came to that, writing commercially viable records as opposed to just records that are played on the street corners or in the neighborhood, trying to write songs that could get commercial play.
I don't want to be super meticulous in hypotheticals, but where do you think hip hop would be without breakdancing, sir?
That's part of the four corners of hip hop. Dancing was important. Dancing and DJing and rapping, all those things are equally important to the music because one fed off the other and it all kind of went together and still goes together, you know.
So it's like a domino effect in that one.
Well, the guys that I started rapping with at first, they weren't rappers, they were dancers. And I would introduce them rapping, and then rapping got more because at first dancing was the most popular thing. And DJ became the most popular thing. And then rapping became the most popular thing. So, it all goes together if you ask me.
Right. When you're working on these records and it just from my research growing up, I'm 24. It seemed to be a full collaboration process. The Chronic, 2001, Doggy Style, a lot of those Death Row records. How do you know when you can chime in to add your flavor or your advice on how to do something? To say Doggy Style serial killer,
If I hear it and I think it's good, then I don't say anything. If I hear it and I don't think it's good, then I say something. But nobody holds any more weight than anybody else. It's a general consensus. We're all in the room together. Whoever's got the best idea wins, because we're trying to make the best song. We don't care where the idea comes from or where the words come from. Whoever's got the best words at that particular moment is the person that's going to win out. So Snoop and all of those young guys, they realized that I had done it at a high level and they paid attention. And so, it was what it was. We was just family.
Were you around during the Missionary album? That's one of my favorite albums, sir.
Yep, I was around. Didn't do a lot on that one. I just, by that time, I was just sitting around watching those guys.
That album and the Compton album from Dr. Dre was something. I love those big drums, those big airy drums, those big percussions. I know every man can speak for themselves, but just from your opinion, how does he go from that? How does he go from 2001 Chronic to these big drums decades later?
Man, Dre is one of those, one of those once in a generation kind of people. He's just really good at what he does. And there is no one sort of pigeonhole for him. He could do it. He could do it all. Doesn't matter what it is. R&B, rap, blues, salsa, shit, it doesn't matter. And he has a really unique way of making it sound great.
Were those specifically Missionary? Was that album live recorded, or was that a lot of VSTs? Yeah. Okay. Okay.
No, mostly everything that Dre does is live. Some sample here and there.
My favorite track off of that got to be the Sting track. What would you pick? As hard as it is to pick, you know.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. I'm taking any one of them.
My buddy Logan, I've known him since first grade, and me and him love the '90s, the classic rap, Warren G, you guys, everything. And he told me the other day, he said, "Hey man, there's this track with Big X the Plug and Snoop Dogg on it, the Sixer album," and it didn't come on my radar. You know, you were involved on that on a track. You know, how did you get involved in the new guys, so to speak? You know,
they called and asked. Yeah, they called and asked if I would do an intro, and I didn't have a problem with it. You know, they from same city I'm from. I want those guys to do well. So anything I could do to add to that, I was happy to do it.
I want to shout out my high school teacher. I was talking to him. I may have an opportunity to speak with you, and he pitched to me to ask you, when you're writing in the '90s for the, you know, on the West Coast side of things, maybe I might be saying this wrong, conveying it the wrong way, but how did you guys, or you specifically in particular, watch that, the evolution of you guys plus what the East Coast was doing? And how did you stay in your own lane by not trying to be too inspired, I guess? Because everybody's inspired by everybody, man. You know?
Yeah, no question about that. And that might be what I did. Like I'm inspired by everybody. But at the end of the day, it's me coming out. So I'm either trying to give them something that works for them, the West Coast guys. But invariably, it's still going to come out. A little of me is going to come out in it. But I'm the East Coast guy, you know. So, because if I do anything, it's going to have that kind of mix to it, because I'm a little bit East Coast, I'm a little bit West Coast, and I'm a little bit South.
Back then, why don't you think people were more sort of, hey, I'm inspired by them and they inspire us? Why was it more of like a protected thing of maybe not to say this person inspired me? You know?
I don't know. That's ego. You know, everybody's got one. And rap has always been sort of a gladiator sport. And so I've always understood that everybody stands on the shoulders of the guys that came before them. But some guys can't see it like that. And, you know, that's them. But you wouldn't have any of these new guys without the old guys. I think Rakim is probably the only guy that came and made a distinct change in the way it flows went. That was so massive that we can't overlook it. But even Rakim came from somebody.
That's very true. That's very true. Do you happen to have a personal cassette collection?
No, I don't have a cassette or an album collection. Or, man, I never listened to a lot of old stuff. You know, I'm inspired in the moment. You know, what I'm inspired by what's going on today. And usually it's motivated by what's in the zeitgeist. You know, what's going on in the world.
Have you ever seen Spider-Man 2, the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man?
Sure.
In that one, he can't shoot his webs because he's overthinking. He can't think. And I think that's probably one of the best stories probably of all time, in my opinion. I mean, did you ever have a moment where, man, there's too much going on, I can't think, I gotta step out, you know?
Yeah.
French.
Yeah. I think everybody goes through They call it writer's block. But I think everybody goes through those moments in life when life starts going too fast or something's fucked up is going on. The creative process is hard to find. Certainly had my fair share of those moments in life. And when it's not flowing like it usually does, that's what you do. You step away from it until those pipes unclog and you can get back to it. Otherwise, what you make is not going to be very good because you're forcing it.
Of course, that got to come with reputation, right? Just keep going back, keep stepping out, and one day the combination will come right. You don't give up.
Absolutely.
I'm 24. I'm a young man. I grew up on your records. To be very more specific, though, it was your features on, Chronic 2001 and the original and Doggy Style and things like that. And then I later discovered your solo albums. Your very first record, your first solo album. Where does that process start, and what was it like working on that record? Because it is a classic record in hip hop, to be honest, sir.
Well, I did that album while we were doing the Easy E, and NWA first records. So I was writing those songs in between times when we weren't working on their stuff. So by the time my stuff came, it was fairly simple. Songs that had already been created. It was just a matter of laying it down.
When you hear the track, let's just say just a random track, and you hear the beat, it just comes from the gut of the heart of what words to start combining.
Yeah, that's how it works for me. Depending on what the beat is, the attitude of the beat. And for instance, there's a song called Funky Enough that if you listen to it, if you don't know the song, that the original song that song is sort of sampled from, it almost feels like a Jamaican. And so when I started rapping, I didn't know I was going to rap it like in a Jamaican patois. It just came out like that because it's the way the music felt. So there's a song called Doc and the Doctor, which is really traditional East Coast MCing. And so that's the way that song came out of me. Real traditional East Coast. And a lot of my stuff is like that, because that's what my heart was. There's a song called A Formula that, even though I'm more East Coast as an MC, that song feels really West Coast in the way it's delivered, because it swings. It's not very boom bap at all. It's just funky, It's, and so it's all over the place. For me, it just depends on what the beat tells you to do.
That's what I really admired about you, sir. Just as a young man, is like you always kind of just watching other podcasts you've done an interview, you've always given back like flowers verbally, and I wish more people did that, especially my age too. A lot of people, like you said, it's ego. Nobody wants to give anybody credit. But it's especially in sports, rap, music is kind of a sport too. I would like to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of my last notes that I had was probably more important than that all. You started your own school. Could you kind of please just talk about how that even came to be and where it is now and what you plan to do?
I did a documentary film called The Doc. I think, fingers are crossed that it'll come out Thanksgiving this year. And at the end of that movie, you'll see where the idea came from to let the younger generation benefit from some of these lessons that I learned along the way. It really just happened the idea from the school came from the movie. And somebody said, I think that's a great idea. We started building it. And now, uh, 2 years later, I'm in 3 schools in Texas. And, really connecting with these kids in a curriculum that's based on technology and entertainment, but solely based on trying to create the workforce training for tomorrow's jobs, which will probably be, for the most part, in the technology sector. Whether you're behind the technology or in front of it, there's enough room for everybody to get in here and get some of this money. And so I'm trying to make a way for my kids, or the kids that come from situations that I came from, like where I came from, to have access to these programs and access to these jobs and situations that, 9 times out of 10, they won't get introduced to unless somebody that comes from there does it.
It's located in Texas, correct?
Yeah, well, it's right now, it's just a curriculum. And so it's only in Texas, but it's a platform that goes inside of traditional schools. And so I'm in 4 schools right now in Dallas, trying to get it in every school in Dallas. But eventually, I want to have my own brick and mortar school where the most talented kids can come and really get inserted into, like, you shouldn't have to wait 4 years to go get a great job. If you're really good at something, you should be able to plug into that now and start to benefit for yourself and for your family. College ain't for everybody, but everybody got to find a job that gives them a living wage that they can take care of themselves and build for the future. And so I'm trying to help everybody find their way to make their dream, whatever that dream may be, come true.
Did you happen to have a favorite subject when you were in school, elementary age, middle school time period?
Yeah, English. I was always good with reading and writing, so I didn't mind that class. I hated math.
Exact
But I
same way, to
loved
be
it.
honest with you. Exact same way.
Yeah, but I love to read. I love to write, and those are the things that end up serving me later on.